I started from nothing, never knew where my next meal was coming. But I transformed my life, I stay one step ahead. Mindset of disruption, I own the edge. This is the ThrillCast, where I bring the wisdom you need. Everyone is selling knowledge, I give mine away for free. I'm as real as it gets, you either love or hate me. Best believe I'm Major League Bill Hines, that's me. This is the ThrillCast. This is the ThrillCast. This is the ThrillCast.
Hello, everyone. On this episode of ThrillCast, unfortunately, our co-host Meg couldn't make it. She had some professional duties back in New York City, but we have a very special guest on. Is Paul the Dude Morris, all the way from down under Australia, and Paul is the 2017 Stadium Super Truck Champion. He's also the only person to have won all three major racing events at Mount Panorama: Bathurst 1000, the Bathurst 6-hour, and the Bathurst 12-hour. Championship titles, like I said, he did Stadium Super Trucks in 2017. In 1995, he was the Australian Super Touring, right? And 1970 Trans Am Series. 1998 Australian Super Touring, and 2000, 2001 Queensland Gemini Series. I mean, the list can. If I keep reading the list of how many championships and races this guy's won, we'd be here all night and we wouldn't even get to talk to him. But Paul, good to have you on, all the way from the Gold Coast, the sunny Gold Coast of Australia.
It's good to be here, Bill. Big fan of the ThrillCast, mate. So I'm pretty excited to be on it and pretty excited to be talking to you, buddy.
Yeah, it's probably a little downgrade from when you were on Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s podcast. That's a pretty popular podcast. So maybe one day we get to have 1% of his followers. So that'll be good.
He does have a big following, and I think my Instagram followers went up by the tens of thousands overnight when I was on that. But yeah, me and Dale are pretty good mates, and the thing I like about Dale's his podcast, his Dale Jr. Download, he's a really good storyteller, and he gets stories out of his guests that no one's heard of before, and I really enjoy his style of interviewing. So if no one's listened to that, even if you're not a car racing person, there's definitely some pretty good entertainment there.
Yeah, and people who don't know who Dale Jr. is he's the son of Dale Earnhardt Sr., who tragically died at the Daytona 500. I believe it was back in 2001, right? Somewhere around then. Yeah, and Paul Morris, tell us how you met Dale. You were racing in the United States, and you...
he was in Australia. So he came... Chevrolet sent him out to Australia to one of our touring car races. So he arrived with a bunch of his friends, and he just turned up at the track and met a couple of his buddies first who were just checking out our cars. And then he was here for a couple of weeks. So we just all hung out together and become close friends. And then, and then he invited me to come to America and hang out with him. And we just did some pretty similar values and pretty similar lifestyles. Obviously, his is a bit more intense than mine, but
a little bit.
Yeah, we
right?
just become good friends.
Yeah, that was an excellent. I really thoroughly enjoyed listening to that podcast a lot, and it, obviously, getting new into the podcast game. I mean, this I think will be our. I don't know. We're around 12, 13, 14 episodes in, and we're learning stuff every day. And, man, you and him probably could talk for hours and hours and hours, and the stories kept coming and coming. So, yeah, learning that craft is really good. But, the thing is, being a professional race car driver like you and Dale Earnhardt, you guys got to be able to carry on that conversation because you have sponsor commitments, and, it showed in that podcast.
Yeah, I think, Bill, that helps when you get a bit older and you've actually got something cool to talk about. So I work with a lot of younger drivers as well, and it's important to be yourself. But people really don't take you seriously no matter what you got to say, and unless you got the trophies, is what I've noticed. So like the biggest trophy in our motor racing world in Australia is the Bathurst 1000. And once you win that race, it's a life-changing experience. Like people just treat you differently. So I think, in motor racing, perception is reality, and people who win those big events just seem to be accepted different to everyone else. But of course they're not. Everyone's always got a good story to tell, but people only like to listen to the guys with trophies.
Yeah, I agree with you. So in the United States equivalent to the Bathurst, 1000 trophy that Paul is alluding to, is they call it the King of the Mountain, and it's the Peter Brock Trophy. And you would say the Indy 500 trophy, similar. So the Borg Warner Trophy, and then I don't know what the Daytona 500 trophy is called, but those three races are probably, and like say Monaco for F1. So those four races are probably, I would say, like the holy grail of racing. And if you could win one of those, along with the Daytona 24-hour, but that's more of a a bigger team effort, to race for 24 hours. But yeah, so Paul Morris, he's won the Bathurst 1000. So Paul, what happened? So when the day before you won, you weren't a nobody, but how did it change? Like, because you had all those championships and super touring and all that, and what did you notice the very next day after you won?
The biggest thing I noticed was how people treated you differently. The average person on the street wanted to know you, wanted to get a picture, because this race is 12 hours of television from 6 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock at night on national free to air. It's a big event. So the biggest thing I noticed was people outside of the industry treated you different.
Well, I noticed that from walking around the Gold Coast with you, or even like in Adelaide or in Perth, we'd walk around and people would just scream, "The dude." Like, and it was like, "Do you know them?" You're like, "No, I don't know that guy." He's a punter or something like that. And just seeing that, it was surreal to see, just because, and even like when your son would see that, and it's like, wow, he's looking up at you. And again, I know Nash from when he was little, not as big as he is now. And, he's like, yeah, that's my dad, and he's proud of him. So that was just cool to see.
It was, mate. It's definitely a big part of our sporting culture here in Australia. And as you say, it's like the Indy 500, like the Daytona 500. It's that sort of event.
And it seems like in Australia, obviously, Australia has, 22 million people or something like that?
Yeah, mate. I think there's more people living on Manhattan Island that live in Australia.
Yeah, but it seems like almost everybody in Australia is, some form of racing, whether it be, like say motorbikes or, they love their motorsports, and they're very knowledgeable fans. They're very passionate. And honestly, anytime I've been there, they're some of the nicest people in the world. Like, they really embrace you. And I mean, the culture, the food, just the people. And I'm actually jealous that I don't live down there with you.
Yeah, I think, like, if you look at Australia, Bill, the landmass, the actual physical size of our country is parallel. It's equivalent to the United States. So a big country, but only 20 million people in it. Everything's very spread out. So to get anywhere or to do anything, you need a car.
Yeah.
We have a massive car culture because it's not uncommon for someone that lives outside the city to drive for an hour and a half to go and do their shopping. So cars are a big part of our culture here. And motorsport is a big part of our culture because you just can't operate in Australia without a car. You just can't.
You can't do it. And in Australia, the two big car manufacturers are Ford and Holden, which is now part of Chevy. But Holden was an Australia manufactured car and then was bought out by GM, right?
Yeah, so that was always GM owned. It's just Holden brand. And Ford. We actually had Chrysler manufacturing in Australia as well, Toyota. But that's all gone now. Like, all car manufacturing ceased in Australia, all imported cars. But you still need a car to get around. But you would have a tribal, very much like you have in the US. You'd have GM versus Ford. You grew up either being a Ford guy or a GM guy, which we called Holden, and that's what made the sport popular.
Nice.
Yes.
So what's going on down in Norwell? So in a previous episode, we had Zoe, and you know of her, and she made a comment, because I've always told her you got to get down to Norwell. So when things open up, she definitely wants to come down to train to Norwell, because now you guys got the Aussie tin tops rolling out, and you do that with Nathan Kaiser, and that is giving so many younger drivers an opportunity, to learn racecraft and get that seat time. So, and I said, in the previous episode, you heard it, I said, they're getting results. So they have the special sauce. Something's happening down at Norwell. I don't know if it's the water, the sugar cane down the road. I don't know what you guys are doing, but you guys are getting really good results.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of keys to that, Bill. Firstly, as you know, you got to have a passion for what you do. Okay. And since I've always had a passion of teaching people how to drive, but since I stopped worrying about my own racing so much, my passion is to make better race car drivers. The second part of that is you need to have a facility, and we're very fortunate here that we have our own circuit. So, and the only practice for driving is driving. So you get those key combinations going. And we've had some great results. Like the best drivers that have in this country now have come out of our academy here at a professional level. And the other thing that's really enjoyable is we're having great success now with the amateur driver as well. The guy that's is a club level participant. We've taken those guys from mid-pack to winning races at an amateur level, which is very rewarding as well. You've been through the training that we do here.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty hands-on, but it gets results for sure.
Yeah, I've even tested, was the inaugural tester of your tire wall.
Yeah, that's a funny story. Remember that?
Yeah.
We had two.
You want to tell that story?
I do, because we had two old E36 BMWs here, and we use them for a bit of combat training. Teach someone how to move someone out of the way, or do the bump and run, or door slam someone. Sometimes you got to get the gloves off and just retaliate on the racetrack. So
Rubbin's racing.
You do, but one of those cars had ABS and one car didn't, and we swapped cars. And I said, "Hey, Bill, just remember that car hasn't got ABS." And you fired down into the braking area, locked it up, and come around the corner, and there you were hanging out of the tyre wall.
I sent it, yeah.
But that tyre wall worked pretty well, didn't it?
It worked, yeah. I didn't go over the hill, and then I remember walking, and you're on an ATV. You come up, and you're like, "Why are you walking?" I'm like, "Oh, are you coming to help me?" He goes, "Well, help you with what?" I'm like, "Oh, I shoved it in the tire wall." And the first thing you're like, "That's great." You're like, "That's awesome." And then I had to apologize to your son, because that was actually his car. And he goes, "It's okay, Uncle Bill. That's fine."
That's okay.
Yeah.
Still making new ones. There was not much damage.
And actually, your son is actually, so Nash Morris is his son. And, heck, not even 2 years ago, I mean, the guy did like iRacing and video games, but I don't think he had any inclination of wanting to be a racer. And then one day he just woke up and says, "This is what I'm going to do." And literally, he works at Norwell. He's really invested the time. He's a hard worker. He's a good kid, and he's getting that track time. And, and it's actually funny. His dad's a legend, the motorsport legend, but he doesn't even really go to his dad. He goes to other race car drivers as well, and Robbo, the Whisperer, and all your guys that you have down there in Norwell, and gets training from everybody. He's just sucking that up. And here we are, he's a race winner now. He's got a few podiums and a race winner. I mean, talk about that. Like, how proud are you to see your son to just go from like sitting on the couch 2 years ago, not that was anything wrong with that, but hey, he had zero desire to follow in his dad's footsteps. And now, I mean, honestly, in a few years, I'm going to be reading off a list, and it's going to be more impressive than yours, probably.
Who knows? But I think the first thing you got to do when you've got a son or a daughter in racing is make sure they want to do it more than you do. So you've seen firsthand, Bill, what I call the BMX dad mentality, how emotional parents can get and how slanted their view can be of their own kids' ability.
The soccer mom and soccer dads, the baseball.
So my thing with Nash was, like, if he wants to go racing, I'm going to make it pretty hard for him to, I'm not going to really help him do it. He's going to have to work out how to sort it out himself.
Yeah.
So, so the first time he come and said, I want to go racing, I found him the oldest, worst car I could find, and it was in bits. And I said, you got a day to get it ready and get it to the track.
Yeah.
Which he did. He took it to the track. He raced it. He spent more time working on it than he did driving it. And then we did that for a few races, and then I thought, okay, well, he's hanging in there.
Yeah.
He must really want to do this. And then I was deliberately stayed out of it. I'm lucky because I got
some really good people
that I train, like Anton Di Pasquale,
and
Brody Kostecki, guys that I coach that are only a few years older than Nash that he can go to for advice without me getting involved. And I think that's the key to it, is to try and remove yourself from that emotional attachment. So no matter how hard you try not to have a bias, it's pretty hard not to. And, I've seen your soccer clips, mate. Your daughter does an amazing job on the soccer field, and you should be super proud of her, which is great. But it's hard to not notice all the other kids on the field, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I notice all the other kids on the field, and I take clips of them, but I'm not the soccer dad that's commenting. And actually, when I was younger, I was really good at soccer. So, like, when I'm home, obviously, at my house, or they're, there's a little practice area and stuff like that. So when I go and visit, I teach her some things. But, again, nobody wants to learn from their dad, so they're going to go to the coach. But, I'm not. Like, I remember one time she had an incident with the coach, and my ex-wife was like, I think you should go talk to the coach. And I went up to the coach and I said, just keep doing what you're doing. I said, run him even harder. And he's like, wow, parents aren't like that. I'm like, no, just, at the end of the day, because soccer players, I said, it's a 90-minute game, You need to have the conditioning to run 120 minutes. So I said, so that's why saving and bringing it back to racing now, same thing. It's like, in SST and even some of the endurance races, we've seen those fathers, and some of them will be listening to this because they pay attention, and you know who you are, and we're not going to name anyone calling you out, but they know who they are. And with Nash, though, the beauty is that everyone he's getting advice from are drivers that you have personally trained. So he's getting the dude download without even knowing it. And the funny thing is I saw the car that you bought him for his first race. It was an absolute shitbox. I was like,
I didn't even buy it. I borrowed it.
Oh, borrowed it. Yeah. So, and that was the other funny thing. So he was hanging in mid-pack in a shitbox. I'm like, wow, what if he had good equipment? And it was funny. I remember when he really wanted to do he's like, okay, I need a serious race. I got to raise money. He didn't go to his dad for sponsorship. He was asking Phil. He came up to me. He's like, hey, Mr. Bill, you like to, I'm like, but all of us noticed nobody funded him fully. Everyone's like, yeah, I'll give you $500 or at that. Like, everyone, like, we made him go to like a whole bunch of different people to figure out his sponsorship, and proud of that young man. I'm sure your dad's proud of him too.
I think it's important to know to get anywhere in motorsport, you need really good relationships. I think that's one of the things we always talk about, don't we? We can go anywhere in the world, and even if we're doing something outside motorsport, there'll be a connection there that'll help us get a deal done or do something. It's just a great sport for having that relationship building and networking. That's what you need to teach. That's what you need to teach the young people,
Yeah, I agree. But you know what? That gets lost on a lot of people. They think it's about spending a lot of money to put a sticker on a car, but that's to me an ignorant statement. And they if they understood, why the Verizons, the AT&Ts, the Boost Mobiles, the Ferrari, the Mercedes, all of these Fortune 100 and 500 companies are involved in motorsport racing because of that B2B and, the business to business and the relationships. And, there's such an opportunity there. And especially in this, world now that is really data driven, that is really content driven, that is really, analytical. Like, look at racing on any given day. If they go to an F1, pit box or an IndyCar pit box, NASCAR pit box, the amount of data they're collecting and data transference, it makes sense why AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, are all looking at those analytics, because it's just not about racing. That translates into other sectors, where there could be healthcare and media, content creation, as you know, and having that connectivity is really good for doing business.
Yeah, and even on a simple level, like if my toilet's blocked and I need to call a plumber, I'm calling the plumber that's involved in racing.
That's true too.
And I know one, because he'll, if I need an electrician or I need my house built or anything I do, I use the Motorsport Network, and we all do. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, great. And I know, anytime I go to Australia, you guys got a whole network of people, and, heck, down in Australia, finding sponsors is not that hard to do, because people are kind of crazy for to just have that access to be around everybody and, to see the race. And, really, I think for the drivers, the race is the most important thing, but for everyone else, it's the experience of just, being at an event and the camaraderie and the communication and just a fellowship with your fellow human, really.
Yeah, it's a good point, Bill. I think that's why we do it. When you're younger, you do it for the thrill of the race, and as you get a bit older, the only place I feel really normal is when I'm at a racetrack.
I agree.
And most of the good things that have happened to me in my life have happened at an event or a racetrack or at a dinner somewhere. There's some of the most awesome things in my life have even happened with you that are the weirdest things I've ever. You'd think in 1,000 years, how could that ever line up and happen? And you'd wake up some mornings and just think, did all that actually happen to me?
Well, what like besides the time we had the 42-inch tomahawks, which were like the thing was bigger than our face. What are some of those things you're talking about?
I think the best one was I was with Kenny Bull at Long Beach. We were in the same restaurant, and you were having dinner with the guys from the band.
Oh, yeah, right.
And he's like, I know those guys over there. Who are they? I said, oh, yeah, that's the band live, mate. They're with Bill. He goes, really? I got to meet them. So he rolled over, he introduces himself, and next minute they've borrowed his plane. Go on tour.
Well, they didn't borrow. He gave it to him.
Yeah.
They were like,
well,
yeah. They were talking. He's like, yeah, like I know Chad was talking about. He's like, one day we got to be here, and we have a festival in Oklahoma, and then we got to go here. And then he goes, oh, that's easy. Just use my plane. And they're like, we can't use your plane. He says, sure, just use my plane. And he did. So Kenny Habul's a fellow race car driver and businessman as well. Yeah, what a great guy. And then, but through that, they made Lee Diffie, and who else was part of that? Now, Ed and Lee Diffie are like buddies. In Connecticut.
They lived in
together.
the same town and didn't know it.
Yeah, and now they go to dinner and everything with Kenny, and they raise hell together. It's kind of funny. So yeah, so that's Ed Kowalcz from the band Live. So him and Lee Diffie of what was it, NBC Sports and NBC.
Yeah, NBC Sports.
Probably
which is
one
an Australian guy.
Yeah,
who I grew up with, basically.
Did you really?
Yeah. I got him his first job in motorsport commentary because he was working as a high school physical education teacher.
No way.
In Brisbane, and then
wow.
He'd done some amateur motocross commentary and stuff and pretty good. And then at the last minute, they needed a guy. And I said, I reckon I can get a guy. And then he did such a good job. He never went back to the school.
He's one of the best, like, sports broadcasters, not just for motor racing, because he's done other events,
Oh, he's done the Winter Olympics.
And
golf.
And I think horse racing, a lot of different stuff. He's one of the best there is, period. And, I don't say that lightly. I mean, he's really good. I mean, and, America has embraced him. And, I love when he has an event. I watch it even just for him because of that basically what he says and the color he brings to it. He's got, and actually on NBC, speaking of that, other friends of yours, Paul Tracy does good, and Townsend Bell, like that whole NBC sports team they got a really good commentating crew, and even sometimes James Hinchcliffe. So look at all these race car drivers that can then, because of, how they are racing and dealing with, the public, that they can just jump in and transition into being, a broadcaster and speaking intelligently on the air about the craft. It's freaking awesome.
Yeah, look, I come across it all the time, even when I'm not working in racing and you're doing something else. You just operate at a level. You're just operating at a level where you just have to get things done and ask questions later. So, other parts of my business world, you'll be dealing with people and you churn out twice as much work as they do, and they can't keep up. Yeah. And when you see a problem, you just find a solution to the problem. You don't back out, and that's what motor racing gives you. You to be successful, you've got to be very determined and just keep pushing forward and find ways to make things happen. And I think that's why people, when they finish competing, can just adapt to any other industry pretty easily, because you're working at such a higher rate than everyone else. Even if you're not as smart as them, you can put the work in.
Well, and that's true, and the pressure with racing is, if you're an accountant, or an attorney, or like a COO of a company, there's different stresses that you have. But if you cut your finger on a paper cut, that's one stress. But when you're going 200 miles an hour down a straightaway and you make a mistake, that could be the end of your life. So you're at a different level of stress. You can take things differently and handle them differently. So you're going to be cut out for challenges more so than people in those professions. Not that there's anything wrong with those professions. I'm sure those people are lovely people who do those jobs. But it's like I say, when you're even in the military and you're jumping out of a helicopter, taking gunfire, that's a little bit of different stress than, say, the guy, who's your plumber. But so with that though, it's kind of funny though. The question I'm bringing is that so obviously I got friends who are in business partners that are in a rock band, and I have friends and business partners that are in racing and different things like that. But it's kind of funny how both those industries parallel, and then actually remember the time Zach Brown and Ed Kowalcz, didn't you have something to do with that?
Well, I think that came from that same night at the hotel. So obviously Kenny met Ed, and Zach Brown is a very good friend of Kenny. So those guys are now mates as well. So
didn't Ed go to a Zach Brown concert or something?
Yeah, he got up and sung with him, with Zach Brown band.
Oh, did he really? Yeah.
Yeah. YouTube, it's pretty good.
Yeah, but it's kind of funny because, like, for me, just for racing, again, even when people were like, "Oh, you know who that is with the live guys," and I'm like, "No, that's just my friend Chad." Like, I really wasn't a big into music, and I'm like, "No, that's Chad. He owns the video company, and they do movies," and it's like, so I kind of downplayed it just to mess with him, but yeah, I did know he was a musician. But when everyone was talking about Zach Brown, I didn't really know the musician. I'm thinking, oh, the guy that runs the F1 team, McLaren, and they're like, no. I was
Zach
like,
Brown band.
I'm like, Zach Brown plays. He does music as also racing, because there is a Zach Brown with McLaren that races, also a decent race car driver, but he runs McLaren. as well. Obviously, you know that, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh, well,
that's fun.
we know both Zach Brown, so that's good.
I think one of the best stories is that Ed Kowalcz just texted me too. So I don't know what he's talking about. Something about Spotify music or something. It's kind of funny. He just texted me right there. But one of my best stories of you is a story that you weren't even around for. Like, you were texting me. It was in I forget 2018. We were at Lake Elsinore, and you couldn't make the race. I don't know why you couldn't make the race. I was kind of pissed at you for not making the race because, in a way, you're always like my security blanket. Like, you calm me down, you know. You do like my download. I get, advice from you, and you tow me around the track and show me the lines and say, this is what you got to do. And you look at my video and it's like, stop, hit the apex, dude. And so I'm texting you. Typically I don't bring my phone in the truck with me. So we're waiting to go out, and I had my phone in the truck with me, and I'm just like texting you, and you're giving me advice, and you gave me the perfect advice, and I took your advice, and I won that race, and it was my first ever SST win. And man, that was a fun time and it was because of you. Like, if you had not told me the strategy. And it was funny, you were telling me the strategy that even the other drivers were going to do. You're like, hey, that fuckwit, he's going to do this. We're not going to name who you were talking about, but you're like, and that guy, he's going to do this, and that cunt's going to send it and crash. And like, it's like, did Paul know the race before it happened? And then like, and if you hold out and don't take the Joker to the end, he's like, you'll win that, man. You'll win that, mate. And literally, we're with 3 laps to go. Matt Brabham takes his, or 4 laps to go. Matt Brabham takes his, and I'm still like, now I'm kind of mid-pack. And then a yellow comes out, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm going to win this. Like, I'm the only one. And I'm like licking my fingers. I'm like, this is like taking candy from a baby.
You won by nearly a lap.
I won by half a lap, actually, 30 seconds. Yeah. And it was funny because typically I'm either mid-pack or at that time or back of the pack. Even the flagger was like confused. Like, they were looking at Robbie and everyone else and thought like I was a half a lap down. So they didn't even wave the checker flag at me. And I'm like,
you were half a lap in front. I was half a lap behind.
It was funny. I was going over the big jump, and I had my finger out the window giving them the finger.
You know the funniest thing about that, Bill?
What?
They wrote the rules. We played by the rules, and they're all in denial that you won.
At that time, yeah. But they went back and watched the video. And
they had to.
Yeah, they had a.
They're like, no, you didn't. We're like, yeah, we did.
Yeah,
we did.
Yeah, we did by a half a lap. They're like, oh shit, he did. Yeah, they all came to apologize to me and everything else. That was funny. They're like, shit, man.
And it was at a baseball stadium.
Oh yeah, that was. Yeah, those are fun. We tried to get one here in York, and it just didn't work out at the time. And I think still any baseball stadium, those short track dirt races. I know we did one at the Valvoline Raceway in Parramatta,
Sydney,
right?
Yep.
And I got a podium there too because I listened to you and Smiley. Remember?
You did, mate. Yeah, just run that thing in there.
I think you said just floor it and don't lift, and I did it. And actually, I held off Smiley to get the podium. He was right behind me.
Yeah, that was good. That was a good night, wasn't it?
That was a really good night. And that one, I saw the checker and I kept going. I ignored it.
We've had some good team battles.
Good team battles.
Gold Coast 600. We worked as a team. That was
good. That was and felt really good with that. And you were second, I was third, and actually Matty Brabham, so he was first. Yeah. So you know the Brabham family. You were teammates with his dad, Jeff Brabham.
Yep.
So how good is it to see someone like that? Like, you see Jeff Brabham, he's a good guy, he's your teammate, and then you see his son, just like your son, following in the footsteps of the dad. And not because you and Jeff beat on your kids to do it. You just both children just genuinely want to do it, and they love it. They have that passion.
Yeah, I think the Brabham thing goes back now to 3 generations. So
yeah, you're right.
It's a massive name in Australia. Like, that's up there, equivalent with an Andretti. Like, if you look at Jack, he's the only person to design, build, and drive his own Formula One car and win the world championship. Like, can you imagine someone doing that now these days? It's just just an incredible thing to achieve.
Yeah, that would be like Enzo Ferrari or Henry Ford trying to do that, like actually being in the car. So Sir Jack Brabham is the grandfather of Matt Brabham and father of Jeff Brabham, and he's a 3-time F1 world champion, but he also made his own car, the Brabham. And they're actually trying to make that car again, but I don't think it has any. I think the family licensed the name, but somebody else is manufacturing it. So I saw it. I mean, it looked pretty, but I don't know the results on the track or anything. So hopefully it does Sir Jack and the family justice.
Yeah, it's a track day car builder here in Australia. And David Brabham, which is Jeff's brother, Matt's uncle, is behind that project. So
nice.
It's a pretty cool car.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed fast and it was cool. I saw it at Adelaide, and they let me sit in it, and then I saw some of the older ones that Sir Jack made and won in, so.
Some of the open wheel stuff. They're probably trying to sell you one, Bill.
Yeah, probably. Not buying, yeah. Anyway, what would you say is your favorite track in the whole world? I think I know the answer to this.
No, my favorite track in the whole world is a track called Lakeside. Which is about an hour north of where I live. I grew up racing there. Yeah. It's got the highest average speed of any track in Australia.
Which is?
I don't know what it is, but it's higher than Bathurst.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a cool little track, and won a lot of races there, had good success there, and it's pretty cool.
Took home a lot of trophies, huh?
Yeah, it's just a track where, if you hang your balls on the dash and have a go, it rewards you,
That's funny. Speaking of trophies, like when you're at Paul's house, there's trophies everywhere. Like in the living room and like the sun, like they're just everywhere. And you're like, wow, you got a lot of trophies. And then I go to his office and I'm like, shit, there's a lot of trophies here. And you're in the lobby of the racetrack, and then he's got a place where he's at now, the bumper bar. I'm like, there's a lot of trophies here. And then in the main lobby, they have the big trophy. That's the Peter Brock trophy, and that has a case unto itself. Like that is the Holy Grail. And then you go up in his office, and there's trophies everywhere. And then I'm like, oh, Paul, I need to get a radio for my helmet for the race. He goes, come here. We go to another building away, and where they have a whole like shop where they sell merchandise. And the thing is the biggest glass trophy case you'll ever see, packed. Like everywhere, like you've won a lot of damn races is basically the moral of that story. And like you don't know where to put all your trophies.
No, I don't. I have to do something about it one day, but I think I'll like Bill, I'll race anything, anywhere, anytime, and I think that's why there's so many. If someone says to me, can you come and race this weekend? I'm like, yep, I'm there. I'd just love to race, where a lot of people these days just tend to stick to one discipline and specialise in it. But, I'm a bit like you. You like to race different cars as well.
Yeah, I'll do.
So I'll race on dirt. I'll race sprint cars. If there's a race on, I'm there.
Yeah, and so speaking of that, so you were kind of retired. You won Bathurst. You won the biggest race there is in Australia. But obviously, you've won. I mean, you won. You're the only one to win all those races at Bathurst: the 6 hour, the 12 hour, all that, the 1,000. So after you retired from that racing, what made you want to basically? And I know you came aboard on 2016, right? Or 2016?
End of 2015 for the stadium truck. Yeah, so Super Cheap Auto, which is the auto parts store, main sponsor of the Bathurst 1000 race.
Yeah.
I was talking to them and I said, oh, we want to enter a truck in the stadium truck race. Can you drive it? I'm like, yeah, no problem. That's how it happened. And then the first race was at the Gold Coast, my home race, and hadn't driven the truck before. And I think I put it on pole position and ended up winning the event. And I was like,
you did.
Well, I got to get me some more of this. And then the start of the first race season was like 4 or 5 months later in early 2016. I went and did the first race at
Adelaide.
The Adelaide 500.
Yep.
And that's when you said, why don't you come to America? And you helped me do that. So
Well, it was funny because Jeff Brabham was talking to me and Matty Brabham, and Matty knew of you, but never, I guess, met you. And we were like, who's that? And they're like, the first time they ever said it, it's like, oh, that's Paul Morris. Stay away from him. I was like, what do you mean? They're like, well, if you mess with him, he's going to know how to give it back to you, and you're not going to know what happened. Like, if do not fuck with Paul Morris is basically what he was saying. Like, he was my teammate, and if you piss him off in a race or you do something nasty to him, like, he will end your race, and you're going to be wondering what happened. So I was like, well, that's the guy I want to know. And I walked right up to you, and I was like, I'm Bill Hines. How are you doing? And it was funny, and we became friends ever since, because it's like, all right, well, if he had that much respect for you, that's the guy I wanted to know, because it's like, and it's actually funny, the exact scenario. Remember this? What Jeff Brabham was talking about happened in a race. It might have been, I think it's Detroit with you and EJ Vizo, and it might not. Oh,
it was in Townsville,
and EJ spun out, and he was like, Paul wrecked me. And everyone looked at the video footage. Like, there's cameras everywhere in an SST race. You have a bumper cam, a roof cam, a tailbone, like a backwards, forwards. There's cameras everywhere. And EJ goes, he wrecked me. And then everyone looked at the video, and there's nothing that showed. They're like, he was even like 6 inches from you. And then they ask you, and you said, only me and EJ Vizo know what happened in that race.
That's right. He knew what happened, and I knew what happened. It never happened again, did it?
And nobody, but like, it's still inconclusive of what happened, and I guess nobody's going to admit to anything. But it's funny. EJ comes up to me and goes, Bill, I know what the video looks like. I promise you, he wrecked me. Because EJ, we were all sponsored on the same team, and actually, yeah, you and him were teammates, right?
I think we were in the back of a cab. You were in the front. Me and EJ were in the back. We were going to dinner or something. He was still whacking on about it.
He was.
And he's go, what happened? And I said, Bill, two people know what happened, me and EJ. And let's just say that.
Well, the cameras didn't even know. It's like when the cameras don't tell. Yeah. That was a funny story. And then other than that, I mean, guys, you got any questions for this? It's a motorsport legend from Australia. You know, Dan and Steven are here.
Like,
our producer and videographer.
I about to say, motorsports is not my realm, so I don't have like educated questions to ask on that. Really,
he's like,
I'm an audio guy. Sorry.
He likes Zach Brown and those guys, right?
My dad's a big fan.
His dad's a big fan. That's funny.
What's happening over there at the moment, Bill? What's happening in York?
Well, with the the COVID stuff, I mean, still they don't know whether it's like one thing. It's kind of like there. It's like they don't know whether they want to open. They don't know whether they want to close again. Trump getting COVID, didn't help any. And then he's riding around like a cowboy, saying it's okay. It's actually funny. The night he did that, I'm like, the next morning, I'm like, the stock market's gonna have a big day tomorrow, and it did. Because that's confidence. Like, oh look, this guy got COVID. He meets every shitty criteria there is. Like, he's 74. His diet consists of Big Macs and Coca-Cola and French fries. So he's not the healthiest guy in the world. And 3 days later, he's out of the hospital from COVID. He didn't have to go on a ventilator. But then again, he's got 10 doctors. He's got the best drugs in all the drugs happening. But then today he says, fuck it. I'm not negotiating anymore until after the election for a stimulus package when, that he's been, so basically all the gains he made from being healthy, we're trying to be like saying he fixed it, he's healthy again, is that when he said he stopped negotiating, there's small and medium-sized businesses and people that are unemployed now that need this stimulus, that need this money to get back on their feet. And it basically plunged the stock market again today in the financial markets, and it's giving small and medium-sized business owners, restaurant owners, no hope that anything's going to change. So now you're saying, hey, they have to wait another 2 months, 3 months, 4 months.
And even still, he's kind of leveraging it,
Steven, what are you saying?
He's even trying to leverage it of saying, we will talk about stimulus checks going out or a stimulus program after I get elected.
Yeah,
so
he
he's
specifically
like,
said like after I get elected.
He's like
That's
waving
a
like a stimulus check in your face, like, "Hey, if you don't vote for me, this is gonna go away."
Yeah, so it's kind of like he's kind of playing it, and it's funny. I think at this point it's funny how a lot of people in Australia really follow American politics, but you guys got your own politics that are messed up as well too.
Well, it doesn't matter what happens here. The bureaucrats run the country. I think you got the same problem there as well, because nothing seems to get done.
No,
but it's interesting to watch from our point of view. You look at Trump, how crazy he is, but then you look at the other side, and they're just emotional wrecks that have absolutely no logic as well. So I don't know how anything gets done over there.
I agree.
It doesn't.
See, the one thing I did want to talk to you about. The one thing I did want to talk to you about too is actually driver training, and I don't mean for race car drivers, because you're definitely a big proponent of teaching people how to drive on the roads as well. And a facility so in a facility like I took my oldest daughter, I took her to a Skip Barber teen defensive driving program, and man, I'll tell you right now, before she went there, she sucked as a driver. Maybe I failed as a parent of teaching her and or something, but she was really timid behind the wheel. And you have had some actually public posts on your social media and even in the newspapers down there, really, kind of going after how governments, and it's the same here in America, it could be any government. It could be the United States or Australia. I really wanted you to touch on that. Like, you have some
it's a good
famous
one,
phrases. Yeah.
Yeah. Like road trauma statistically is probably way more chance of dying that than you have of COVID, right?
Yeah.
You look, it's just become acceptable that people die in cars. It's just become an acceptable, person gets eaten by a shark. It's on the news. It's the most tragic thing that's going to happen. 300 people die on the road each day and no one gives a shit. But it's interesting, like driving a car is probably the only discipline that any government thinks you don't need training for. They want to train you for everything else in your life except for driving a car. It just makes no common sense to me. But you got to start somewhere. You got to try and make a little bit of difference in your life. So we do have a pretty good driver education program here. And, would you get in an aeroplane and jump in an aeroplane with someone that hasn't been trained in emergency procedures or an untrained pilot? You wouldn't think twice of it, but you jump in a car every day and don't think about the consequences. So
you train everyone from like teenager looking to figure out how to drive their Honda Civic to people who want to learn how to jump trucks 50 feet in the air.
Yeah, well, a car, and I say this a lot, Bill knows this one, but a car or a motorcycle or whatever is just a machine that responds to inputs. If you give it the right inputs,
responds to inputs.
It'll do what you want it to do. There's no such thing as a bad road or a dangerous car. It's like saying, it's like a gun. The gun will only kill you if someone picks it up and points it at you and pulls the trigger. A car's only dangerous if the person operating it does the wrong thing. Until you change people's mentality on this. So they keep making cars safer. They have airbags. Why have they got airbags? Because they don't want people to get hurt when they crash it. Well, wouldn't you train the person not to crash it first? How is that not your priority? Then they have anti-lock braking. They have anti-skid control. So what's happened over the years, if you, as old as I am or Bill, you remember looking at a set of skid marks and they'd hit a tree or a telephone pole or a fire hydrant or whatever. You could always tell how the accident happened because you'd see skid marks and the person had hit the very thing they're trying to avoid. Now with a modern car, you have anti-lock braking, anti-skid control. You don't see any of the skid marks anymore. All you see is a car on the side of the road or up a tree and go,
upside down.
How did that happen?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Like, how do you get over there? Yeah.
How do you get over there? Because the accident where you would have an accident 20 years ago at say 50 miles an hour, that accident's not going to occur now to 90 miles an hour. You know, the grip level's so high. So when it goes wrong, it's just this massive mess. So the difference between teaching someone how to drive on the road with a modern car is completely a different curriculum now. And it's all about distractions, not being distracted in the car. And if you look where you're going and concentrate on what you're going to do, you're not going to crash. That's just that simple. And we're just not training people how to operate vehicles properly.
Yeah, I noticed a huge difference. Like I said, night and day from she took the course, and it was only 8 hours. And I think, obviously, think about that. Like, you're only getting a training for 8 hours, and, you know, you can be remarkably better. Now, again, I think they have to have 40 or 60 hours of training before they get their license to be on the road. But
from who?
Well, from some dude or girl.
From anyone. No one is qualified anyway.
Yeah.
I'm about to say, I think that varies state to state a little bit too.
It does vary state to state. I honestly let's say, in my opinion, I really think that, you know, in my opinion, that somebody that's like in PA, you can get your driver's license at 16. I personally think that that's way too young, because if something goes wrong, then you really see, like if they're in an accident or if they hit an ice patch or if they hydroplane, you really then see the immaturity of the 16-year-old, and they don't know how to react, you know?
But they don't know how to react because they don't have experience, Bill. So
training, yeah.
Because in PA, it's what, 16 you can get a permit, and 6 months after that.
16 and a half, yeah.
Yeah, is when you get your license.
But if you move that up to 19, the same thing will happen. You still got an inexperienced driver, so
that's true. I guess
you just need to promote.
It's like saying you can't. It's like saying, oh, you can't start school till you're 12 now.
Yeah.
I was gonna say too, because you're talking about, like, you know, hydroplane and stuff like that, and seeing the immaturity. But I feel like I've seen a lot of grown adult drivers hit those situations and also look pretty helpless.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If you take a driver from, like, say, that never left Florida and they go visit somebody in PA and they get an ice storm. See, whereas a track like Paul's, they actually can simulate, even though it's Gold Coast, they don't get snow there, but he has a track and they wet it down and they do a skid pad, so it simulates all of those conditions. It simulates, you know, hey, this is a brick wall you're coming at, stop before it, you know. So they can put you in these situations, well, I call them the oh shit moments, that you don't panic, and like he said, it's just the machine that responds to inputs. I remember I was at a race one day and I was fucking up, and I'm like, it's the truck, and he's like, Bill, it's not the truck. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, it's just the machine responding to inputs. It's the person inputting him that's fucked. And I was like, all right, so you just told me I sucked. It's like, well, yeah, for this race you did.
I mean, and to that point, like, you take someone from Florida, light dusting of snow, and they'll shit their pants.
Oh yeah.
Take someone from, like, I don't know, Boston or something like that, and they'll drive in 2 feet of snow without too much fear.
Yeah, you always see like news headlines of, like, I think like West Virginia or something will get like an inch of snow and they shut the whole state down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Paul, how old's Nash right now? Watch this. 17?
17.
So Nash never probably been on snow in his life. If he came this winter and came to Pennsylvania and we put him out in a car, a rear-wheel drive car even, and I threw him out there and I said, go, Nash, in the snow, he'd be drifting around every corner with it wouldn't even bother him.
One-handed drinking coffee in the other hand.
The dude can drift. I mean, the little dude, the son, even though he's never been in that situation, he's been in simulated situations to where the rear of his car has been broken loose. So it's the same thing. It's responding to inputs, and at that point you have to be very smooth to that. So wouldn't you feel comfortable with Nash in the snow?
Yeah, no problem.
Just easy, right?
Just a lack of grip. Deal with it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So sorry if the story was said. So how old was he when he started driving?
Probably 5.
Okay.
Nash?
As soon as you get to see over the wheel, yeah.
But to say I have a 5-year-old, I would not trust that.
I'm not racing. He wasn't racing at 5, right?
No,
Nash?
He wasn't racing. No. But
still
yeah,
any driving experience at that age, that's impressive.
Well, that's a Wild West still in Australia back then.
Yeah, it's not. That's not uncommon for Australia. Like
Oh, wow.
out in the farm.
As soon as you get off the main road and there's no one around, your dad normally goes, "Hey, do you want to drive?" Like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same thing. The dad will be like, "You want a beer?" Like 4-year-olds with a little sippy cup of beer.
Just because I'm ignorant to it, what is I guess, like, so here at 16 you can get a permit in Pennsylvania, and then 6 months after that you can go for your actual license. How does that work in Australia, or where you guys are specifically?
It's similar. It varies from state to state, but it's pretty similar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same thing like that. Yeah, it's set up like here, like different states and stuff like that. But it's far. Like if you want to, it's not an easy drive going from say Gold Coast to Perth.
Okay.
So do you
better
see
work out where your stops are?
Do you see Australia opening it up so that any Australians can leave the country anytime soon?
You got to get permission from the government to leave if you want to leave.
Oh wow.
So there are people that are leaving. The biggest problem we have is getting people back home.
Oh, because of quarantine, right?
Yeah, it's still a lot of Australians that are overseas and getting them back in the country and getting them quarantined. So,
well, Scotty McLaughlin, he's going to leave, right? Isn't he going to do a race with IndyCar and St. Pete, right?
St. Pete. Yep, he'll be there.
Yeah, and
he'll be there, and I reckon he'll be staying there. I don't think he'll be coming home.
To start the next season?
I reckon so, yeah.
Yeah, he's going to be good. I think you called that one too. So
yep.
There's a rumor SST might race in that race too. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, maybe you should get a special waiver.
Yeah, trouble is when I got to come home, I got to quarantine for 2 months, 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah. Well, it's not like you are slumming.
And I don't like hotels as much as you do, Bill.
Oh.
You got to quarantine in a hotel.
Oh, you can't go home?
No, you get locked up.
Get out of here. Really?
Yeah.
Go to that Sheridan on the Gold Coast. That's really nice. They got some good birds there. I'm just kidding.
Well, at the moment, I can't leave my state.
Well, they got it locked down?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought only Southern Australia and Western Australia were locked down.
No, everyone's opened up now except the state government in Queensland, which is a state I've lived in. The border's shut between New South Wales and here. But there's an election coming up. She's trying to save us.
Victoria's closed too, or no? Melbourne opened up?
Yeah, they're shut down. They're still locked down. You can't even come out of your house down there.
Yeah, there's like 1 hour a day to do something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So everyone thinks like America is bad, but in Queensland, in Victoria, like Melbourne area, it's literally you're locked in your house. Like, don't come out. What do they do if you come out though?
They
shoot
fine
you?
Yeah, they don't shoot you. They'll fine you, give you a fine, send you to jail.
Like a Robbie Gordon type fine for hooning, doing donuts on the street?
$5,000 or something. It's quite a big fine.
Oh, that is a big fine then. Wow.
Yeah.
So what are the case numbers there that they're locking down?
You said there's 20 people?
Yeah, I think there's 20 people or something now. It's like nothing.
It's nothing. It's really nothing.
Is that cases or deaths?
Oh, I don't know what the deaths is. That's active cases, right?
I think deaths, we've had 90 or something, 90 deaths. Like, it's just nothing. There's more people dying of bee stings.
And that's a stark contrast to like what we're facing here in the States right now.
Yeah.
Well, there's more people dying of even like car accidents, like you were saying, than that.
Yeah.
But see, Australia did it the right way. Like right when it happened, they like them in New Zealand, they reacted very quickly and shut it down. Like there were like nobody from China coming in, nobody from the States. Like they really did it the right way. They reacted the right way initially, but at this point, I think probably they just need to open up everything now, right?
Yeah, they had a second wave down in Victoria, which shut everything down again. But it's a hard one to predict, Bill. It's a trade-off between keeping people in jobs and keeping people healthy. So
that's true.
But everyone's having a good time. The government are basically paying you to do nothing at the moment, so no one's complaining.
So unlike in America, the politician, they sent out a $1,200 payment to families that, had income under $75,000 a year, and that was it. And
this is how it worked. If you were on welfare, you normally got $300 a week. They bumped that up to $750 for everyone. If you got laid off from your job, they gave you, the employer, $750 a week so you could go back to work. So they just looked after everyone, which we're all going to pay for later. But
yeah. If someone owned a business and they had 10 employees, and those employees made $500 a week, the government help the company out so that they can continue to employ them? Yeah,
they get a wage subsidy. So I've got 10 employees here. I was given $750 for every employee I had. I could make them work $750 worth of work, or make them work their full hours and then top them up. Or if they were, like, I've got 2 apprentices here that only earn $300 a week. They're now on $750. They get the full amount.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is it a one-time subsidy, or do you get that per week for them?
Every week.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't like, whereas in America, they got $1,200 and that's it. And they never got, there's nothing else. It was a one-time payment.
Every week. So the problem we've got now is businesses are starting to get going again, and no one's applying for the jobs because they're all having a good time sitting at home getting paid.
Oh, because at home they get $750 a week.
Yep.
So sorry to interrupt here. I just pulled up some numbers, just out of curiosity for this is Victoria, I guess.
Victoria got hit bad. Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying. So it looks like their total active cases, they've had like 20,000 out of like 27,000 total in the country. So it looks like it's very focused in that area.
Yeah, they're the worst. Yeah.
But like it's been 15 new cases in the last 24 hours.
That's what he was saying, about 20 new cases.
Yeah, there's a second wave that came through.
Yeah, it seems like there's currently 216 active cases, and 19,149 people have recovered. So, I mean, compared to the States here, that's not bad.
No, that's pretty good.
I don't know what that is per capita, though, versus like the ratio of people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just want to pull up some numbers.
Paul's a race car driver and business owner. He's not a healthcare professional.
Yeah, Australia's total cases is 27,174.
That's nothing.
And Victoria alone had 20,233.
Oh, you see that picture behind him?
The next closest one is New South Wales, which was 4,246.
That's the son.
Bill.
What's up? That's his son, Nash. How you doing? You're on the ThrillCast?
What?
Yeah, you're on the podcast.
Dream come true, mate.
So what's it like going from like 2 years ago, just goofing around on iRacing to finally winning your first race? What's that like?
It's pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah. Women like me now.
Where do you keep your trophy?
I didn't get a trophy for it.
Why not? You had it. You won the race.
They were on a budget.
No, I'll have to petition the sanctioning body to.
Yeah, you should come run it, Bill.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to come run it. I got to be let back into the country first, COVID and other issues. So yeah.
Hey, you been good?
Yeah, we've been good. So this is the Nash Morris we were talking about. So yeah. So were you upset? We were talking about how I tested the tire barrier wall
in my car. Yeah,
in your car when like 3 or 4 years ago. So were you upset when I crashed your BMW?
If it was someone else, I would have been, but not Uncle Bill.
Yeah, that's like a character mark on it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny. All righty. Well, get your dad back on. We're probably going to wrap this up and see that photo right there? That's Paul Morris and right there. Paul, move to the right. There you go. And that's Chad Mostert. And that's when they won Bathurst, right?
Yep.
Where's the fire suit that you were burned in?
Oh, it's on the wall over there?
Oh, over there, yeah. Yeah, Paul was in a pretty bad accident. There's the bumper bar. Look at that. There's a sprint car. So, where's the World Gym Thrill? You got to put that up.
Suit? Yeah, we need to put that up.
I gave it to you.
The gorilla suit?
The gorilla suit from World Gym when I'm sponsored down in Australia.
Where is that, Nash? We need to get.
Yeah. got no room on the wall.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, thanks for coming on the ThrillCast. I don't have anything else unless you do, unless there's something to topic. But if you are in Australia, I would say a couple things you got to do in Australia. One, you got to go to, if you're a teen driver or even an older driver and you just want to get better behind the wheel on the road, Norwell Motorplex definitely is a place to go. You can get trained by legends like Paul Morris, but they have, a lot of people that can train you there. Robbo the Whisperer. You got Brody Kostecki. You got Brock Feeney. Some really, really good guys there.
The Flash is now coaching too.
Flash is coaching now. And if you're a race car driver or karting and you want to make that transition from go-karting to race car driver, then they got this new series that's called the Aussie Tin Tops. And like I said earlier, that's really I've been impressed. I can't wait to come down there and race in that series. I think I'll be basically probably first couple races complaining to you that the car's not doing what I want, and then you'll be giving me it's just a machine responding to inputs. And the other thing people got to do when they go down there is go to Sierra May Winery. I like to say I don't drink wine, but if I did, I would drink Sierra May. Just kidding. Right?
That's what you say.
That's what I say. So they got a very nice winery, and would you call it a vineyard? I guess. I don't know. I don't know that terminology since I don't drink alcohol. But it's a beautiful area. They got a lot of musicians go there, so it's called the Day on the Green.
Day on the Green, mate.
Yep, big concert series. So
hopefully we get cracking again here and we can have some more of that happening.
Yeah, I think Live is going to come back and do a full tour there in Australia, not necessarily the Day on the Green, if they let them in 2021. So I don't know if that's still going on or postponed, but I'm sure, we'll have we had Chad Gracie on, the drummer of Live, but we'll probably
need the vaccine, mate. Whatever they gave Trump, we need to hand out to everyone.
Yeah, I mean, Trump was back. Trump was riding around a day and a half.
Yeah.
If only we could all afford that same treatment.
Yeah, but see, there's people out there like Chad Gracie. He will not take a vaccine. He does not want any type of drugs in him. He's not doing it. He rather get it and then get the immunity that way than take a vaccine. So what side are you on? Would you take the vaccine?
Hell yeah, I would.
Do you take the flu shot when you need it?
Yep.
Oh, nice. What about you guys?
Yeah, I'll take it.
I probably will, but I don't think I'm going to be one of the first adopters, especially if they're rushing this through with the FDA.
Yeah.
I may let some other people do it first and wait patiently.
So you would take it right away like Trump?
Yeah.
Guinea pig, right?
Gonna die of something, might as well be a vaccine shot.
That's Paul Morris.
I do wonder with him because they pumped him full of steroids, and steroids can definitely make you feel better than you are. So I'm kind of wondering if we're going to see a crash. In the next few days here.
He's like, best I felt in 20 years because he's on steroids.
It's like that dice. I can't pronounce it, but it's generally something reserved for the most severe cases. But him also being the president, they may have just been like, here, take it.
Who knows?
So what's the prediction, Bill?
For what?
In the election.
Oh, I think. So here's the thing with that. And again, I'm not going to say who I'm voting for or not voting for, but we'll leave that for another episode. But I think just like what happened in 2016, I'm just saying Trump supporters, they don't tell people they're a Trump supporter because
it's the silent majority.
It's because they're afraid of getting bashed. Okay.
Yeah.
But then again, same thing as a Biden supporter that happens to be around Trump supporters. Same thing happens to them. They get bashed. So I think in this day and age, whereas 10, 20 years ago or whatever, you could proudly say who you were voting for and not get too much shit for it. But because today is everyone's feelings are getting hurt, people are being more reserved. But I mean, at the end of the day, take COVID out of the way. Elections are typically won by, let's just say the big money.
Yeah, and it's hard to beat an incumbent. And
to beat him, they would need I think if Biden basically ran right on the heels of being vice president to Obama, he had a much better chance of beating him. He would have had a better chance of beating him than Hillary did, as I think even Bernie did, but for some reason the Democratic Party didn't want those candidates.
Yeah, we're not sure about that either.
Yeah, so I really think that Trump is going to win, and I think it's going to be bigger than he even beat Hillary. And again, I'm not saying that because I support him or don't support him. I'm just saying the factors are big banks, big oil, the stock market. People's like whether you hate him or not, if you have a 401k plan, like in Australia, I forget what you guys call it down there, but the remuneration or whatever, the superannuation, yeah, that's your 401k plan. That's some people's are up 40% even after COVID. It's like it went down in March, it crashed, but it's the stock market, everything's back up to the pre-COVID highs. So let's just say you're a person that has, you've been saving all your life, you're in your 60s or 70s, and you have, I don't know, $500,000 in your account. Well, in the past, since Trump's been president, now that's up another 40, 50%. And now you're at like 700,000 or whatever. Like it's that, like, that people aren't going to be like, well, I don't want, let me see what another 4 years does for this, Yeah. So I really, strategically, I think he's going to win. I mean, that's probably going to be a very unpopular pick, but again, it's not necessarily who I'm voting for. So I'm just saying, from looking at all the facts, like, how many times has an incumbent lost?
It's rare.
It's rare.
I do think this is going to be an interesting one, though, because, like, 2016, I feel like there was strong support from Trump's base for him, but Hillary didn't really have that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that like maybe would have preferred Hillary, but they just didn't really give a shit about her, so they didn't go vote for her.
Yeah.
And this time around, I think we have more people who are less complacent than the last time around, who may go out. I think it's a toss-up more than it was back then.
I think so too, because it was.
But it is hard to be an incumbent.
I think you guys are delusional on that one. I really don't think
it was like the allure of the drain the swamp. Let's try something new, and now like there's a lot of people that are like, I don't know if that worked out. I don't know,
man. Money talks, bullshit walks, type of thing.
Depends on the people are investing in the stock market.
What do you think, dude?
I think no matter who's in charge, most people's lives aren't going to change anyway.
Probably pretty accurate.
I actually always said that. I said it doesn't, for the everyday average person.
I mean, it's
whoever the president is doesn't like matter. Like, the president's not the reason you're unemployed. The president's not the reason that you're, had a breakup.
Not directly, but like the Supreme Court is something that really does affect that, which is picked and nominated by the president. So like directly, yes. But, like gay marriage being legal right now had to do with Supreme Court picks and things like that impacted a lot of people in a very significant way. And while, again, that wasn't a direct thing from the president, that was due to nominations and picks by previous presidents.
Yeah.
So, like, it does matter, but yeah.
It's not going to matter. Whether the wall gets built or not, it's not going to bother anyone.
The wall. You're still on the wall.
Well, they haven't finished it.
Yeah. I don't think they started it, did they?
They've done some stuff, but it's kind of an enigma.
Just get it done, mate. Give someone a job.
I mean, we need what Australia has, just a big moat. Like, you got the perfect wall.
Yeah, just flow off our borders
big ass
with
ocean.
Canada.
The problem we have in Australia is there's no cheap labour to do anything.
Oh, it's so like. Actually, it's funny you say that. So
I wouldn't be kicking them all out, because who's going to mow your fucking lawns?
Yeah, but what? Seriously, watch. So when I first went to Australia, whatever year it was, a long time ago, and I like tipped the waiter, and the waiter was like, "You don't need to tip me. I make a real wage." And I'm like, "What the fuck's he?" And literally, like, the dude's like, "Bill, they make like $30 an hour." I'm like, "What?" It's true, right? Don't they make like $25, $30 an hour, like wage, like in Australia, to be a server, a waiter, or waitress, that's a professional job, and they take it very seriously.
I feel like that's how it is in most countries.
No, but here's the thing, though,
that we fuck them over.
In Australia, they don't fucking care. Meaning, like if you get your meal, they like, and you want another drink, some of they're like gone because they don't need a tip because they're making $25, $30 an hour. So like, where the fuck is the waitress at, or waiter? Whereas in America, they get $2 an hour, so they got to work for the tips.
I was gonna say, what's like? I guess your equivalent to a minimum wage there.
I don't think
it'd be $22 an hour or something.
Well, yeah, for a
and
tradie,
what's the
right?
exchange rate on that for an Aussie dollar versus
25%.
Yeah, like 18.
Your way? Yeah, less.
So like 18 American, you're saying?
15, 18, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's for like little, like a entry level, yeah.
Yeah, like you're starting at that.
Like I said, a
across the country.
server, a bar. Now, if you're like a chef, it's the wages is really good.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, you could tip, but they really don't. They don't need them. They're like, you don't have to tip there. Yep. Anyway, I just hate driving on the other side of the road. Fucking hate it. I Uber everywhere in Australia. Paul knows that.
He does.
Yeah, he's like, drive your car. I was like, Anyway, well, thanks for coming on, and
All right,
we'll
mate.
do it again when I have a co-host. I'm sure she would ask you many questions and stuff like that. But
Yeah, no worries, mate.
yeah, she couldn't be here, unfortunately, and but the show must go on, as they say.
Yep.
It's kind of like if we were in an endurance race, and you were coming in the pit, and they said, "Where's Bill?" And you're like, "Oh, well, he's taking a crap." And just keep going. So get fuel
Keep
and
on
go.
trucking.
Keep on trucking. Well, give my regards to everyone, and have a good day. Be good.
ThrillCast.